On Friday, President David Granger addressed members of the local media corps where he fielded questions on a wide range of issues relating to government policies and programs and current events of national importance. We bring you a special report on that media briefing. On the matter of the wages and salaries for teachers, the head of state said his administration is actively seeking new sources of funds to meet the wages of teachers.
President David Granger today expressed the belief that strike action by the teachers should be a last resort. The president said there is still room for mediation talks between the government and the Guyana Teachers Union, GTU. The head of state said, as was the case with the Gaisuco workers, government is currently looking at budgetary cuts to programs within various agencies and ministries to meet the initial payment to teachers.
If mediation fails, we can go to arbitration. But I think it's premature to speak of a strike at this stage. And we are still, on the government side, aiming at mediation. I do not believe that mediation has failed. The government has been trying to meet the teachers' needs after several discussions at Cabinet on the high-level panel report. Money was found to augment the initial offer, and even as I speak, the Ministry of Social Protection, which has responsibility for labor and industrial relations, is in touch with the Ministry of Finance to see whether additional funds could be found from other heads of government expenditure in order to move closer to the goal of providing sufficient funds for the teachers.
President Granger reminded that over the last 3 years, the lowest paid teachers have been beneficiaries of pay increases along with other public servants.
The teachers were not discriminated against. They got all of the benefits the public servants were getting all along. But nevertheless, we are cognizant of the needs of the teachers, and we are still, we haven't abandoned the negotiations. We are still in negotiation at this day, as far as I'm concerned.
Asked about discussions on the multi-year agreement with the GTU, President Granger said at this stage the immediate focus is for the two parties to conclude an agreement which would see the calling off of strike action and the beginning of long-term discussions on the multi-year agreement. Meantime, the head of state, while acknowledging that the contingency plan to be activated in the event of the strike action is not very favored, said it is a temporary arrangement.
If you want to call it a band-aid, and it is not meant to last beyond the present crisis. So naturally there will be problems of capacity in terms of engagement. The experienced retirees may have the knowledge. Obviously trainee teachers are just what they are. They're on the training, and they would not have the knowledge to teach the children to the standard that is expected. So we hope that this crisis is of short duration and that we go back to normalcy. This is abnormal to have teachers, retired teachers and trainee teachers. It's abnormal, and we hope to return to normalcy as quickly as possible.
The Ministry of Education assured that they will be galvanizing the support of retired teachers and students of the Cyril Potter College of Education, CPCE, to fall into place in the event the strike action of the GTU continues into the commencement of the new school term on September 3. For InfoHub, Stacey Carmichael.
Following the night discovery of ExxonMobil offshore Guyana, the president says his government is cognizant of the continuous oil discoveries and is intent on building a world-class petroleum sector.
President David Granger said the recently established Department of Energy has a wide range of issues to address as it relates to the regulation of the petroleum sector.
We are conscious of the international environment. We are conscious of our commitments. We are conscious of the continuing discoveries of large amounts of petroleum offshore Guyana. And we intend to establish a world-class industry that is well regulated. It will take time to recruit the high-level people. They were not in place in Guyana as of May 2015. And we are now moving to recruit the best people worldwide.
The head of state disclosed that the Department of Energy is an interim measure since the small unit within the Ministry of Natural Resources did not have the capacity to bear the burden of a world-class petroleum industry.
The decision on the 1st of August came about as a result of the Minister of Natural Resources' request to Cabinet that the portfolio or the responsibility for petroleum be removed from the Ministry of Natural Resources, and it was on that basis that the decision was made to set up a Department of Energy. The Department of Energy itself is just, I would say, an interim measure. In due course, we hope to have a ministry responsible for the petroleum industry. It is too large.
The president said government is still in the early stages of setting up the department, but in due course there will be a Ministry of Energy or Ministry of Petroleum. As it relates to the agreements with ExxonMobil, the head of state said these will be subject to review by the Department of Energy.
Once international contracts have been engaged in, there is no question of removal or renegotiation of those contracts. We will move forward and ensure that we continue to get the best advice before we engage in any other negotiations.
Given the circumstances at the time, the president said the government negotiated with ExxonMobil for what was possible at the time. For InfoHub, Stacey Carmichael.
On the subject of newly sworn-in Commissioner of Police Leslie James, the head of state said James was selected through the prescribed constitutional process.
President David Granger said newly appointed Commissioner of Police Leslie James was selected from a list submitted following consultations by Chairman of the Police Service Commission in keeping with the constitutional mandate.
Every stage of the selection process is mandated in the Constitution. That is, first of all, the Chairman of the Public Service Commission has to be appointed. We had to wait in the National Assembly to do that. Once he's appointed, he becomes a member of the Police Service Commission. The Police Service Commission itself had to be appointed. And once appointed, they had to meet and deliberate. And once they deliberated, I was required under the Constitution to consult with the Chairman of the Police Service Commission. So all that was done. And I received recommendations from him. And by and large, I felt those recommendations were reasonable.
In addition, the head of state said he is comfortable with the selection since the Police Service Commission had access to critical information to guide its decision.
My final decision was based largely on the consultation that I had with the Chairman of the Police Service Commission. The Police Service Commission conducted interviews, had access to files not only of current events in the police force, but of historic events. So that when you find officers who have been serving for example, 30 years, there has been a record of their performance for a long period of time. And I relied very heavily on the advice I got, and the advice I was required to receive from the Police Service Commission. So as far as the selection process is concerned, I can justify my decisions. And I'm sure if you spoke to the Chairman of the Police Service Commission, he is prepared to justify his recommendations.
Following consultations with the leader of the opposition as constitutionally mandated, President Granger yesterday named and subsequently swore in Leslie James as the Commissioner of Police. James is to be assisted by 4 deputy commissioners. These are Nigel Hoppy, Paul Williams, Maxine Graham, and Lyndon Alves. For InfoHub, Stacey Carmichael.
President David Granger also restated his government's commitment to inclusionary democracy and continued consultations with the opposition leader.
The head of state said the door will remain open to talks with the opposition leader. He said this has and will continue to be the position of the coalition administration.
In terms of inclusionary democracy, you know the history of that, and I will continue to engage leader the opposition to ensure that important elements in society and the economy are discussed and we share ideas. There's perhaps better to say there's an idea sharing proposal rather than a power sharing proposal. But we have no problem with engaging the opposition, and all of my meetings with the leader of the opposition have been quite cordial.
The president expressed optimism that when engagements with the opposition leader resume in September, matters will be addressed quicker and thoroughly. President Granger also made it clear that the former U.S. President Jimmy Carter is not a broker in the talks between himself and the opposition leader. He explained the extent of Carter's involvement in the process.
He is not establishing some new procedure. As a friend of Guyana, he inquired about the process and whether there were any obstacles. And I gave him some answers based on the experiences we had since 2015. So I would not agree that there's an ongoing formula, there's a process supervised by President Carter. I have always been open to meetings with Mr. Jagdeo, and I will continue. I've never denied, I've never failed, I've never refused to meet Mr. Jagdeo, and I wouldn't. As leader of the opposition, he represents a substantial portion of the population, and I don't need Mr. Carter to tell me that. So there's no Carter process taking place.
The president believes that him and the opposition leader can make progress on their own. For InfoHub, Stacey Carmichael.
Finally, the head of state said that Gaisuco lands will be entrusted in a state lands sale commission.
The head of state said the administration is committed to retaining jobs in the reorganized sugar industry.
Gaisuco is important to us. We have said that we are not shutting down the sugar industry. It is being reformed. We are bent on maintaining larger estates in East Berbice, in West Berbice, and West Demerara, at Albion, Blairmont, and Iflut. We hope to produce between 147,000 to 150,000 tons of sugar. We now hope to be aiming at producing those volumes of sugar, and we are aiming at maintaining a working population of about 10,000. So the industry has been placed on the corporation has been placed on the new CEO, and we are selecting a board of directors, the members of which would be more knowledgeable in sugar production.
In addition, he says Gaisuco is a business and must be managed in line with profitability, while lands will be entrusted in a state lands commission.
As far as the closures are concerned, once an estate has been closed, the lands will now be subject to the jurisdiction of, first of all, a state land sales commission, of which the SPU, the Special Purpose Unit on the NISL, will have representation. The idea is that we won't sell off the family jewels. We'll make sure that the lands which are being taken out of sugar are placed to the benefit of the people of Guyana as a whole.
At the end of 2016, 4 estates were closed in a major cost-cutting exercise to reduce the billions of dollars that consecutive governments have been pouring into the industry. To date, redundant workers have been paid at least 50% of severance pay due to them, while it is expected that the remaining payouts can be achieved by year-end. For InfoHub, Stacey Carmichael.
You have been watching a special report of President David Granger's press conference hosted on Friday, August 31. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.